Hey, what's going on? My name is Tony Cable, and I was in the sound design showdown with my good friends and uh, teammates Jess Wallace and Connor Edmonds. We unfortunately didn't make it past the semifinal round, um, but we still had a wonderful time and we learned a lot. And it was great to work with the two of them um, in a proper team setting. And so I just wanted to break down our sessions that we had for each round, starting with the first one here. Um, our first round was. So let's jump right in. Our first round was the prompt that was given to us was an unusual object as an instrument lead. And so I have some pretty extensive music production background, and we were going back and forth. We were deciding on what kind of direction we should take this, and I think I suggested some sort of like jazz type tune. It ended up turning into more so funk than anything. But so that was the basis of it, and Jess sent me this really awesome recording of her riding her bike with an aluminum can stuck to the back, so it was hitting the spokes as she was riding. Let's just give you a little listen of what that sounded like. If we move ahead to the tail end of it, or excuse me, no, it was in the beginning when she started. There was a moment, I can't find it right now, but there was a moment where she slowed down a lot, and I took that specific moment, and it was like just some individual clicks that were happening. I took that moment and then sped it up to give you this particular sound. Let's make sure all the processing is off, so you just get the raw file. So I took that and I sped it up gradually and recorded that sound, so I got this until I actually landed on a pitch. I think it's E. I think I landed on like the note E and then based everything else around that. And so it turned into something like this. Yeah, and the MIDI channel is actually right above that. So what I did was I just resampled it into a new track so I could print it to an actual waveform without freezing and flattening and ultimately being unable to go back to the MIDI if I ever wanted to change any sort of rhythm or notes or anything like that. So that's why you see like a duplicate here, because this one had that one didn't have as much vibrato as this one did. So when I recorded it, I sent that off to Jess and Connor, and Jess, they both suggested that the vibrato was a bit lacking, and so they asked me to go back and fix that. And so I had the ability, I should say, to go back and tweak some things and make sure that it was all working properly. And so let's look at the processing right now. So right now, this was here's the file. It's right there. That was the specific piece of the waveform that I decided to grab a hold of and speed up out of this entire 3-minute wave file. And so just to start, here's how it sounds unprocessed completely. Sorry, I'll give you that one. Cool. So that sounds super weak and devoid of all life. And so for the processing, I started with an OTT just to beef it up a little bit and give you a little bit more balance across the entire frequency spectrum. And then a saturator for more beefing. It's getting louder, but still boring. And so when I added the chorus on it, the ensemble setting in Ableton, that's when it started to come to life, really. Right. And then with the delay, just to give it some space. And then stereo widening, just a bit more. And then reverb. And making sure that my my pitch LFO here this was the one that didn't have as much vibrato on it. I ended up changing it and then recording it, and so it's not an accurate depiction of what it sounds like now. Right. And then getting this sound here, which was the bike noise revving up into the pitch, that was also another idea that we were throwing around, is how to convey to the listener that this isn't just some random lead that I found off of like a preset somewhere in one of the plugins that I have or something like that. This was actually a physical sound of something, and it's gradually winding up into and turning into a lead. And so that's why we tagged that on the very beginning. But that right there sounds super weak compared to the actual lead sound when there's no processing on it, right? Right. So I had to match the processing chain here to make sure that it sounded like one cohesive thing. And when I did that, I gradually brought in the processing. So there's a dry chain and a wet chain basically, and I made a macro that changes it over time, this little automation ramp here. Right? So there you have it. There's the lead. For the rest of it, I was experimenting around with some loops and stuff, and I got started with this sound. And I kind of knew where I wanted to go with it from there. And so I overlaid that with another guitar here. And so when I originally had this loop, it was actually the chords were switched around. And then I had to, chop it up. Sorry, I had to chop it up and then flip some of the chords around so it actually matched everything that I was trying to do. So this is what it sounds like, both guitars. And then I introduced the drums next. With some side chain compression here. So every kick and snare hit was ducking all of the other sounds down. And then I added a bass. This is what the bass sounds like normally. And of course I changed the pitch of it. I think this is an E minor. E minor, but the original source sound was this. So I just pitched it up, and it sounded fine, but there wasn't enough low frequency information that I was, for me personally, I wasn't too comfortable with how that was lacking. So I duplicated it, and then I pitched this one an octave down from this one. So that one by itself. It gets kind of low and like rumbly, but together it gives a nice a nice texture to it, I think. So here's without. And then here's with it. Right? And then finally, I had this little trumpet lick in here, and it's so quiet. It's so far back in the mix that you can barely hear it, but it is there. And I also drowned it in reverb. So that's it. And that's all that exists in there. So like in context, now that you've heard that alone, that's why it's so loud. Let's try that again. There we go. Yeah, and it's so far back in the mix, it's like almost undetectable. But it's just enough that you can kind of feel it rather than hear it. And that's kind of what I was going for. So yeah, that was the whole thing. I had this like synth here that I decided not to put in. And that was kind of it. Yeah, I just felt like it kind of didn't need it. So I ended up killing the channel, and so that didn't end up making it into the final version of everything. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. I know this is probably a lot longer than I needed it to be, but I just wanted to get through everything and sort of break everything down. So stay tuned for the quarterfinals, second round from the Sound Design Showdown. That'll be posted a week from today. And yeah, thank you for watching.